So there's a lot of movies and shows I've been meaning to see. You know, you see a lot of people talking about it as a series, and you think, I should probably watch that if only to have an opinion on it. At the same time, there's always a movie or two that everyone hates and you love, or vice versa. So I thought it might be fun to talk about the discussion around movies. I find this almost as enjoyable as watching the movies themselves. You know, the general opinion on a movie. This is mostly just going to be me looking at movies I haven't seen, but I've seen a lot of discussion about. So yeah, I heard Aquaman was alright.
A hero.
The obvious thing to do is to check the aggregate sites first. Aquaman is sitting at 65% on Rotten Tomatoes for critics and 75% for audience. IMDb has it at 7.1 stars, Metacritic has it at 55 for critics, and 75 for the audience. Now, typically the audience score is something that you can safely ignore, as only people who go to these sites are those who feel passionate about the movie, be that love or hate. But the audience score for this seems fairly even spread. Not a lot of polarization, so that's nice. What this does tell me is the fans somewhat enjoyed the movie. It's also likely the story is a bit simplistic. Critics seem to care more about the craft of filmmaking or storytelling, and audiences just go to be entertained. That observation seems to bear fruit when you look at the written reviews, many saying it fails to do anything new in that regard. Whereas the story seems to be simplistic to the highest degree, comparisons to Thor and Black Panther are ubiquitous, the plot seems to be needlessly complex. Because I didn't know this for a while, the difference between a plot and a story is story refers to the events that happen, and plot refers to how those events happen. The king died, then the queen died is a story, the king died, then the queen died of grief is a plot. Or it's the exact opposite, because people are inconsistent. But that's the distinction between the two. Anyway, a constant complaint seems to be the movie is a bit long. The pacing isn't the best, apparently. Overlong was a word that stuck out to me. I want to make special mention of a review by Peter Hartlob that unironically utters the line, Aquaman continues to revel in the outdated 1970s superhero ideal that humankind is somehow unquestionably worth saving. Which has to be the most elitist thing I've read in a long time. This seems like something the bad guy would actually say in one of those 1970s superhero comics.
It's a fair fight, yes?
Oh my god, I just got that. Good movie. Moving on to the video reviews and essays, mostly it's just a repeat of the written reviews. People seem to think it's alright, although there's a lot more fanboyism in some of these areas. Any idiot can make a YouTube video. Trust me, I have first-hand experience on that. Although I feel like Red Letter Media made a coherent point about how every DC movie feels like a course correction from the last. Special mention to the movie Bob, who put forward the best description I've heard of this movie. Based on all the reviews I've read, that seems to be the overall opinion of the movie. Now, what am I expecting going in? A simple story with a bad plot and some good CGI. So, Black Panther plus decent visuals. This will either be the dumbest thing possible and I'll love it, or the dumbest thing possible and I'll hate it. Well, let's see if the critics are right, because apparently I should be the judge of that.
Atlantis has always had a king. Now it needs something more.
But what could be greater than a king?
A hero.
So yeah, it was pretty alright. There were times where the CG wasn't the best, the plot was kinda needlessly complex at times. Not that you couldn't understand it, just that it didn't need to be that complicated. It reminded me of the first Thor more than anything else. The emotional climax was literally a guy picking up a weapon to prove that he's worthy, all to keep his kind brother from getting the throne from this super advanced culture. Come to think of it, what's with these ancient cultures and still using monarchs? The original story of Atlantis was literal Athenian propaganda about how it's stupid to be ruled by one man. But now everyone's just sort of focused on the, oh, it's a cool underwater city thing. Kind of missing the point entirely. Still, I suppose a monarchy allows for greater story opportunities, and that's probably why it's done. You know, you can embody a person as being the whole nation, and it allows for, you know, a look at that culture by looking at the person who rules it. It's, you know, it's good for story opportunities. Anyway, the main character arc worked, if nothing else. I didn't care for the romantic subplot, however, and I know, you have to give the girlfriends who were dragged to see this movie something. This one, however, feels particularly tacked on. Then again, I only ever remember liking one romantic subplot in anything, and that was Aaron and Crichton in Farscape, so I'm kind of a bad judge. It didn't feel overlong to me, I don't get that complaint, but I could pause the movie and go to the bathroom if needed, so again, I'm not the best judge. Although practically that's probably better advice at this point. The one thing that stood out to me is a lot of the scene transitions were really well done. They were really clever. I like how it would zoom in on something like a aquarium and then like move into like over the sea, and it was just like, it was really cool. I think the director did a really good job. I know he's famous for doing horror movies, but I don't like horror. The script is the thing that actually really needed work. That's the only thing I'm gonna say about that. So, were the critics wrong? No, I would say the critical reception is about right for this movie. I'm not a fan of numeral scores, but 7 sounds about right to me. Good, but flawed. It wasn't as cheesily bad as I was expecting, honestly. Oh, it was still cheesy, but not to the degree I was led to believe. Is this the worst depiction of Aquaman ever? By no means. Was it the best it could have been? Don't be.
Outrageous!